Northwest 36th Street in Miami blazes under the January sun in 1997. You are watching a 39-year-old club owner cruising down the busy avenue in his gleaming white Jaguar convertible. Gold chains glint against his chest, alongside expensive designer sunglasses shielding his eyes. He looks exactly like a wealthy businessman heading out to count last night's receipts. Suddenly, the scream of sirens shatters the morning peace. Unmarked black utility vehicles swerve aggressively through heavy traffic and box the Jaguar in completely. Brakes screech violently as heavy doors slam open across the street. Armed federal agents flood the chaotic intersection with their weapons drawn and leveled at the driver. They shout deafening commands over the noise of the city. Ludwig Fainberg is violently dragged from his leather driver's seat and forced face down onto the burning asphalt as stunned bystanders stop to watch. Federal authorities accuse this man of orchestrating one of the most audacious and unbelievable criminal deals of the entire decade. They claim he attempted to broker the sale of a 300-foot Soviet Foxtrot-class military submarine directly to the notorious Cali cartel for $35 million. This was a Cold War hunter, designed to track down enemy fleets across the globe. Now it was intended to smuggle 40 tons of cocaine beneath the Atlantic Ocean, completely invisible to radar and unstoppable by coastal law enforcement. It represents the absolute climax of a massive international sting. Operation Odessa involved multiple intelligence agencies and spanned across 3 different continents. To truly understand how this spectacular collision of drug lords and military hardware began, we must rewind the clock several decades. We have to look at a world completely removed from the sun-drenched streets of Miami. What kind of upbringing transforms a boy running through grim Soviet stairwells into a mastermind capable of selling heavy military machinery to drug lords? We travel back to Odessa, Ukraine in 1975. Concrete apartment blocks and endless ration lines teach a harsh curriculum that no school ever could. While American teenagers are busy learning how to drive cars, a 17-year-old, Ludwig Fainberg learns a much more valuable lesson in the Soviet Union. He figures out how to turn extreme scarcity into lucrative opportunity. His very first criminal hustle involves forging official papers for desperate draft dodgers. This early enterprise is crude and highly risky, but incredibly profitable. It teaches the young man the golden rule that will permanently guide his entire life. Survival has absolutely nothing to do with physical strength. It is entirely about leverage and who owes you a critical favor in dark times. By 1979, the Soviet system is slowly fracturing, and ambitious young men are desperately searching for viable exits. Leonid leaves his homeland for Israel while chasing a new identity and a much grander life. However, mandatory military service quickly humbles his grand illusions and breaks his spirit entirely. Failed academic exams and shattered dreams permanently end any lingering hope of building a prestigious professional career. This massive failure leaves a deep psychological wound, but also ignites a ravenous hunger within him. He swears he will never again let any other person dictate the ultimate trajectory of his fate. By the time he finally reaches the shores of the United States in the early 1980s, the old Leonid is entirely dead. In his place stands a new man named Ludwig, who is completely fluent in the dangerous languages of risk and leverage. Brighton Beach offers him deep criminal connections. However, he quickly realizes that the neon-lit streets of Miami offer genuine, untethered power. There, a chaotic night at a local venue changes his destiny forever. A club manager gets violently arrested, leaving the desperate owner begging for someone who can control the business and its highly dangerous clientele. Ludwig immediately steps into the violent void, and soon the legendary persona known as Tarzan is officially born. Within a few short months, the establishment named Porky's becomes much more than a simple strip club. It evolves into an absolute sanctuary, where Russian mobsters and Colombian traffickers conduct open business. Porky's Club in Miami pulses with loud music at nearly 4 a.m. during a humid December night in 1994. The exclusive VIP room is incredibly heavy, with thick cigar smoke and the scent of illicit money. Tarzan lounges comfortably in his usual shadowy corner booth, entirely relaxed. He is currently hosting a tight group of sharply dressed Colombian men whose custom-tailored suits cost significantly more than most normal vehicles. These men are definitely not wealthy tourists on vacation. They are high-ranking emissaries, directly representing the fearsome Cali cartel. and they command absolute respect from everyone. The hushed conversation drifts seamlessly between Russian and Spanish and heavily broken English. They discuss fast boats and smuggling planes and complex logistical nightmare scenarios. Then one of the cartel lieutenants leans forward across the table with a specific request that instantly freezes the entire room in dead silence. They demand a specialized maritime vessel that can successfully transport 40 tons of illegal cargo from the coast of Colombia directly into the United States, completely undetected by any authorities. They make it perfectly clear that the purchasing price is absolutely no object if the machine works as perfectly promised. Tarzan initially chuckles aloud, thinking this is a dark joke, until he slowly realizes that nobody else in the room is smiling. The staggering figure of $35 million they casually mention is entirely real. Their profound desperation to bypass massive federal border security is also incredibly real. Submarines are highly classified pieces of military hardware, strictly controlled by national governments, and completely impossible to acquire through any normal civilian channels. But Tarzan understands that these are definitely not normal times in global history. The mighty Soviet Union had utterly collapsed just 3 short years prior to this meeting. That catastrophic political collapse left entire armadas of heavily armed naval fleets rusting away into nothingness inside forgotten frozen ports. Tarzan possesses the street smarts to know that in the chaotic landscape of post-Soviet Russia, absolutely everything and everyone is available for the right amount of hard Western currency. The ruthless Colombians give the Miami club owner exactly 2 weeks to deliver a solid answer regarding their impossible maritime request. As the cartel men quietly exit the booming nightclub, Tarzan is already calculating his massive potential profit margins. Even a standard 10% finder fee would secure his luxury lifestyle forever. But a massive lingering question remains about whether any private citizen can actually purchase a fully functional military submarine. There is really only one specific way to find the definitive answer to that question, and it begins with a single, highly dangerous international phone call to a very dark place. Over his many years operating in the criminal underworld, Tarzan has meticulously built a massive network of disgraced former military officers and corrupt shipyard brokers and ex-intelligence agents. One contact currently owes him a massive favor, while another desperately needs American dollars, far more than abstract national loyalty. What exactly happens when a man calls up a totally collapsing nuclear superpower and politely asks to purchase one of its deadly submarines? We shift our focus to St. Petersburg in December of 1994. A high-ranking naval captain intensely stares at a half-empty vodka bottle on his desk. Outside his frosty office window, an entire dead military fleet rots away in the freezing water. His loyal naval crews have not received their government paychecks in several long months. Fuel is incredibly scarce, and brilliant commanding officers are completely quitting the military just to drive city taxis for basic survival. The desk phone rings loudly late at night, breaking the depressing silence. A confident voice from America speaks perfectly fluent Russian but carries a distinct regional accent. The mysterious caller introduces himself as Ludwig and smoothly claims he represents a wealthy oceanographic research company looking for a decommissioned underwater vessel. The corrupt captain names an absolutely unthinkable price of $1 million in pure cash for a fully operational naval submarine. The transatlantic line goes completely quiet for a brief moment. Then Ludwig asks a highly technical question that makes it abundantly clear this deal has nothing to do with ocean research. 48 hours after that initial shocking phone conversation, Ludwig calls the Russian base again to confirm the massive illicit transaction. He confidently declares that the multi-million-dollar deal will absolutely happen. However, he strictly insists that he must personally inspect the enormous vessel and meticulously plan its transoceanic transport. Ludwig has actually been researching something far more dangerous than the heavy machinery of the submarine itself. Even if a private criminal syndicate can successfully purchase a 300-foot military weapon, one massive logistical question remains. Moving a Cold War machine across the Atlantic Ocean is practically an impossible nightmare. How exactly do you sneak a giant warship past every sophisticated intelligence agency and military radar installation on the entire planet? We arrive at the heavily guarded Kronstadt Naval Base in Russia during the bitter cold of February 1995. Three unusual men casually walk through the strict military installation. They stroll past heavily armed guards looking as relaxed as if they were simply browsing a used car lot on a sunny afternoon. One man is a wealthy Cuban-American broker possessing deep blood ties to the notorious inner circle of the legendary drug kingpin Pablo Escobar and his violent associates. Another member of the group is a flashy Miami playboy who specializes in selling exotic luxury cars directly to wealthy drug dealers. And leading them is Tarzan, who just successfully bribed his way past elite military base security using nothing more than a cheap bottle of vodka and $500. Their personal tour guide through this restricted zone is the corrupt naval captain who is treating this illegal weapons inspection exactly like a legitimate corporate business transaction. Because in the chaotic and broken landscape of post-Soviet Russia, this horrific security breach is considered standard daily commerce for desperate military men. The massive submarine they are meticulously examining is a fearsome diesel-electric beast featuring 300 feet of brilliant Cold War engineering. It was originally designed to relentlessly hunt down enemy naval ships in the freezing North Atlantic waters. Now it is destined to become the most expensive drug mule ever conceived. Tarzan's criminal partners are profoundly impressed by significantly more than just the intimidating physical scale of the metal submarine. The Miami car dealer immediately visualizes the endless logistical possibilities for transporting illicit goods. Meanwhile, the Cuban fixer deeply understands the truly revolutionary potential this massive vessel represents for global drug trafficking. This complex operation is no longer just about moving massive pallets of narcotics across international borders. This audacious plan is about fundamentally rewriting the unwritten rules of global smuggling and creating an unstoppable empire. But acquiring the giant metal submarine is merely the hardware phase of this terrifying grand scheme. The true intellectual challenge lies in establishing a massive support network sophisticated enough to actually operate the advanced naval vessel. Over the next month, Tarzan brilliantly assembles a dark logistical structure that reads exactly like a gripping espionage thriller novel. He recruits former intelligence operatives who specialize in forging official government documents. He also hires elite maritime lawyers who expertly navigate the complex loopholes of international shipping laws. They register untraceable shell companies in obscure island nations that intentionally refuse to ask any questions regarding civilian submarine ownership. The master plan that ultimately emerges from this brain trust is truly audacious in its simplicity. The deadly submarine will be officially sold as harmless surplus military equipment to a completely fake oceanographic research organization. It will then be quietly refitted at a corrupt commercial shipyard located in Africa or South America, entirely far away from the prying eyes of any global law enforcement or military intelligence. Expert engineers will carefully modify the internal cargo compartments to hold exactly 40 tons of pure cocaine instead of explosive torpedoes. Once completely operational, the stealthy vessel will silently rendezvous with Colombian supply ships in deep international waters. It will safely load its massive cargo and approach the American coast fully submerged. The massive drug shipment will then be rapidly transferred to waiting cartel speedboats directly through the empty torpedo tubes. It is practically a foolproof smuggling system since submarines are virtually invisible to modern surveillance technology. A single successful delivery run would generate enough profit to pay for the entire operation 10 times over. Foolproof criminal plans possess a dangerous tendency to attract the intense attention of incredibly smart and resourceful people. Unfortunately for Tarzan, some of those exceptionally intelligent individuals happen to work for powerful federal agencies. These are men who absolutely do not appreciate creative entrepreneurial thinking inside the dangerous international arms trade. A highly classified intelligence alert just securely landed on the wooden desk of a veteran narcotics agent who specializes in tackling utterly impossible cases. He is about to launch an unprecedented undercover operation that will permanently alter the entire landscape of global law enforcement. Welcome to the beginning of Operation Odessa. Deep inside federal headquarters in Virginia, during March of 1995, a bilingual undercover operative carefully studies a surveillance transcript. The documented conversation sounds exactly like pure pulp fiction. An American citizen is actively trying to buy a massive Soviet submarine from corrupt military officers to transport tons of cartel cocaine. Just 6 months prior, this wild intelligence report would have been completely ignored as drug-induced fantasy. But the ambitious man making these international phone calls is the notorious club owner Tarzan, who the authorities have heavily tracked for 2 years. His popular Miami venue is definitely not an ordinary entertainment establishment. The neon-lit club serves as a central clearinghouse where violent mobsters and arms brokers openly launder millions of dollars. When the unbelievable submarine negotiations are finally verified, everything drastically changes for the investigators. This is no longer just a standard narcotics investigation, but a massive threat to absolute national security. Within a mere 48 hours, the bizarre case rapidly escalates into a massive multi-agency federal task force. Elite investigators from various intelligence branches join forces to combat this unprecedented smuggling threat. They officially name the sweeping investigation Operation Odessa as a dark tribute to the criminal mastermind birthplace in Ukraine. Advanced surveillance operations expand exponentially across multiple continents. A small army of undercover agents and paid confidential informants flood the humid streets of Miami. They install hidden wiretaps across 3 different countries while electronically tracking massive offshore money transfers and suspicious global travel records. At the absolute center is a brilliant undercover operative. This brave agent carefully builds an impenetrable cover identity going by the name Sasha. He portrays himself as a wealthy international businessman, possessing deep criminal ties to highly corrupt government officials throughout the former Soviet territories. Their very first heavily monitored meeting is meticulously staged at a popular Russian restaurant on Collins Avenue. Within a few short weeks, the charming Sasha secures an open-standing invitation to the notorious VIP room at the club. He successfully gains direct, unfiltered access to the absolute inner circle of the massive smuggling conspiracy. What Tarzan blindly perceives as a powerful new European ally is actually a massive federal Trojan horse. Every single phone call and every whispered meeting is secretly documented by the massive federal task force. What originally began as a completely wild street rumor has rapidly transformed into concrete forensic evidence of a massive global conspiracy. But the closer the undercover agent gets to the core, the greater the mortal risk becomes. If the paranoid club owner ever actively suspects federal surveillance, somebody is going to die violently in the streets. Yet if the task force nervously waits too long to strike, a devastating military weapon might actually change hands. By August, the atmosphere inside the humid VIP booth suddenly feels incredibly cold and suffocatingly heavy. The dangerous criminal partners sit across from each other with their expensive drinks completely untouched and their words cautiously measured. After spending several stressful months executing this complex logistical plan, extreme success should feel very close. Instead, the suffocating air of the dark room just feels incredibly dangerous and filled with thick paranoia. The primary problem is definitely not the endless supply of drug money, since the impatient cartel has already advanced $10 million. It is also not the corrupt military officers who remain extremely eager to sell their rusting metal submarine. The truly fatal problem rotting the core of this operation is simply trust. One of the major brokers finally breaks the crushing silence and demands to know the true background of their new partner, Sasha. Why does the mysterious European businessman always have the perfect logistical answer and strangely never ask for any heavy cash payments up front? The dark seeds of doubt begin rapidly sprouting into pure panic. The poisonous paranoia spreads through the criminal syndicate like thick black smoke in a burning building. High-ranking cartel fixers aggressively demand entirely new communication security protocols and heavily encrypted cellular devices. Even the notoriously arrogant Tarzan begins obsessively replaying old conversations in his head while desperately searching for any tiny hidden surveillance clues. At the exact same time, massive external pressure steadily mounts from the ruthless Colombian investors. They demand immediate concrete progress rather than empty logistical excuses, while the corrupt Russian military commanders angrily demand their final multi-million-dollar payments. Meanwhile, hidden federal agents quietly listen to every single panicked word through their advanced wiretaps. Deep inside the sprawling criminal conspiracy, formerly ironclad alliances begin to violently shift and rapidly crumble. Loyal, lifelong friends suddenly transform into terrifying liabilities, and trusted business partners instantly become prime federal suspects. A massive global network that once felt completely untouchable is now extremely fragile and merely one nervous mistake away from total implosion. What the brilliant mastermind completely fails to see is that the invisible prison walls are already violently closing in around him. Every single anxious question and every whispered dark suspicion is exactly what the federal task force desperately hoped to achieve. Criminal empires do not need to be broken by brute external force alone. When severe paranoia successfully takes hold, a criminal syndicate will eventually tear itself completely apart from the inside. A scheduled drug transaction that is supposed to be a simple logistical test run secretly masks a massive federal sting operation. Sasha claims his corrupt contacts demand physical proof of narcotics before finally delivering the massive submarine. The dangerous meeting takes place at a loud entertainment venue, featuring pulsing lights and multiple tactical escape routes. The undercover agent confidently arrives first carrying $200,000 in secretly marked federal bills. He is entirely backed up by a hidden tactical response team meticulously watching absolutely every angle of the crowded room. Tarzan cautiously walks through the heavy doors exactly 30 minutes later carrying the requested cartel cocaine. His finely tuned street instincts immediately scream that something is deeply wrong with the tense atmosphere. The undercover agent's logistical questions suddenly sound way too precise, and his intricate cover story simply does not fit together perfectly anymore. For 10 agonizing minutes, neither side fully commits to executing the highly illegal exchange. Sasha desperately needs the physical drugs to officially change hands, to authorize an immediate tactical raid. Meanwhile, the paranoid mastermind absolutely needs total certainty that he is not blindly walking into a massive federal trap designed to ruin his life. Suddenly, an urgent phone call from a panicked cartel associate permanently changes the entire trajectory of the night. The violent Colombians have definitely detected heavy police surveillance on an entirely different operation and aggressively demand an immediate freeze on all transactions. Tarzan briefly apologizes and rapidly vanishes into the warm Miami night, leaving nothing behind. The utterly failed sting operation generates massive political consequences throughout the capital city. Washington officials now firmly view the insane submarine plot as a dire national security crisis, rather than a standard cartel smuggling case. The complex investigation instantly shifts from careful long-term observation to an absolute urgent demand for immediate forceful interdiction. Tarzan unknowingly becomes one of the absolute most wanted criminal targets in the entire nation. By early 1997, the massive task force finally decides to completely shut down the staggering conspiracy. They rapidly deploy heavily armed tactical units to aggressively sweep the sunny streets of Miami and capture the brilliant underworld mastermind. After thousands of hours of intense surveillance, the brilliant man who almost bought a Soviet weapon is finally sitting inside a cold federal interrogation room. Arrogant prosecutors firmly believe they possess an absolutely airtight legal case featuring dozens of severe felony charges. They fully expect to easily bury the captured mastermind in a dark cell forever. However, the captured club owner is absolutely not panicking under the intense fluorescent lights. He is carefully calculating his next brilliant move because he possesses something incredibly valuable. Years of navigating the treacherous black markets of Eastern Europe have provided him with highly classified intelligence regarding deep global smuggling routes and massive military corruption. He coldly transforms his vast criminal knowledge into the ultimate bargaining chip for his absolute freedom. Tarzan mercilessly betrays every single one of his closest business partners and aggressively exposes multiple international arms dealers to secure a stunningly lenient plea agreement. In the brutal world of high-stakes global crime, loyalty simply does not exist.